Drawing is not always a sanctuary. Art in general is not always going to be this safe haven that you can roll up to, push back the veil and slide inside and everything will be all right. I spend a lot of time on this channel talking about the positive aspects of art, all of the invigorating things that it does for your soul and why it is important for us to create, especially if you have that drive. I'm not going to turn around today and talk about the negative aspects, but things are a little bit difficult at the moment. And it's nothing dramatic. It's just simply the last couple weeks have been a lot. There's been a lot of good that has happened and things that have come up, but also I'm just out of energy. And when I run into these situations, whether it's burnout or I'm just tired, it's so hard to engage in artistic things. And then what inevitably happens is I end up taking a batch of time away from my art. Maybe it's only a week, maybe it's a couple. And when I come back to it, I dread it. I feel strange, like an outsider coming back to someone else's work. And as I begin to thumb through things, especially as I begin to put new marks on the page, I feel lost. Like I don't remember what I'm doing or how to do this. It's not really imposter syndrome, but I would imagine if you've struggled with that there's enough of an analog, that it's similar enough. Sometimes these things come upon me and I don't understand why. This is a particular situation where I had so many things come up, some that were stressful and some that were good, and it was just too much. I hit a wall maybe 4 or 5 days back from recording this and was just like, all I want to do is sleep. I don't want to do anything. And it's really difficult. I'm not bringing this up today to garner any sympathy or pity. I have refrained from that on my channel up until this point very purposefully. However, I know that a lot of people in our creative community struggle with burnout, struggle with depression, if that be what this is, and struggle with struggles that creativity in and of its very nature being so linked to our souls and our emotions often comes with these, downsides, if that really is what they are. And so today it felt only honest and authentic to kind of bring that up, to talk about the fact that when you push yourself very hard as an artist, whether it's in school or as a professional or trying to become a professional, which might be the hardest of those 3 categories, you are probably going to run into situations now and again that are just burnout. You're going to hit an invisible wall. I, for most of my life, have not understood the concept of burnout. And it's particularly because with the way my brain is structured, I can do routines forever, essentially. I enjoy the mundane. I can strap myself down and do whatever I need to do. It's when the break occurs that I realize where my brain's been at. So when I was teaching, I would teach for the 9 months and it was hard pretty much the whole time. And I would get to summer break and in the back of my mind, I would be planning all these wonderful, exciting, artistic and creative things I would do. And inevitably what would happen is I would just collapse mentally for weeks. I always beat myself up for this because in the moment I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand that I was basically an engine that was running on fumes for the last couple months of the school year, and so the engine needed to go to the shop. It needed some maintenance. And nowadays I have a better understanding of myself, the fact that I can push through just about anything, but if I do it forever, I will eventually hit a breaking point. And then I'm just not much use to myself or anyone else. Fortunately, at my age, I'm capable of making sure I carry out all the stuff that I need to. I still take good care of my wife and my daughter when these things hit. But I find it incredibly, incredibly difficult to engage in anything creative because it's welcoming the possibility of failure when I already kind of feel like that in the background. So if you've experienced this before, if this is something that you've struggled with before, I just want you to understand that you're not alone, that everyone in a creative field, whether you're doing it for hobby or career, is going to run into these things at some point. The only exception, perhaps, is the people that either by meticulous management or by good fortune have built the structure of their creative lives in a way that they have frequent enough breaks that they are able to abstain from running themselves entirely dry. But if you are anything like me or any of the myriad students I taught, especially at the high levels, you probably have run into this before. And so you're not alone in that. And I think that's the biggest reason why I wanted to bring this up today. And I'm really rambling right now. I have no script for this. I was upstairs making my tea and came down and was like, I think I'm going to talk about something hard. Maybe this will stay. Maybe I'll delete this whole thing and do another video. But if you're listening to it right now, I obviously didn't do that. And I have before. I have just deleted a whole script. But I was upstairs making my tea and then came down and decided, there's probably someone out there who is in this situation now or will be in this situation or has been. And art is so isolating. Not only are most artists fairly introverted, which means we talk to fewer people, and the people that we do talk to, we're probably hesitant to share our own personal struggles with, but we also just don't run into as many people and we keep to ourselves. This means there's a very high likelihood that whatever you are struggling with now or have struggled with in the past artistically, you probably feel isolated, or you have felt isolated, or at least you have a higher propensity to feel isolated. Extroverts don't run into this stuff as often. They're more apt to talk about the struggles they're going through and the things that are happening. And because they're being social more frequently, they have a higher propensity to hear other people talk about those things and therefore demystify them and make them less strange. But when you put hundreds of hours into sketchbooks, into paintings, into your iPad art, you don't necessarily have as many opportunities to hear about the struggles that others are going through. And we all struggle. I don't have scientific evidence to back this up, but I really do think that artists tend to struggle more with perhaps mundane things, or just they struggle more with the mental, social stuff than a lot of other folk. I don't really know why. I've got some ideas, but again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a psychologist, so it feels almost irresponsible for me to pontificate about those things in a setting where you could be hearing my voice and assuming that I'm right. Don't ever assume I'm right. I will try to give you lots of reasons for why I think the way I think, or if I'm demonstrating something, I'll try to walk you through the logic of it, but use your own, your own logic. Don't trust random folk on the internet unless you know their credentials and you know enough to make that call. When I talk about these things, I always like to kind of structure them in a way where I've got, here's the problem you might be encountering, here's the solution. And I even have an episode on burnout on this channel. It's a long episode, a podcast that I put research into and all these things. But right now, what you're hearing is just my stream of consciousness. And the reality is, I don't have a great or perfect answer. I have lots of theoretical knowledge about this. But generally, when I hit the wall, I need to rest. And if I try to avoid that, if I feel guilty or shameful about needing to take that rest, then the whole situation just avalanches downhill. It's not always like this crazy tumultuous thing, but the more I resist resting, the longer the problem persists. And sometimes the rest is pretty simple. Right now the rest is across the board. I need to rest physically, I need to rest mentally, and I need to rest creatively. I'm kind of on the upswing again. I was able to do some art yesterday and today, and it's felt good. I'm getting myself back in the swing of things, but sometimes I just need to rest creatively. If I've done a ton of creative stuff for a while, I just need to rest creatively. And sometimes it's just physical. But there seems to be a difference between physical rest, mental rest, and almost like an emotional, spiritual rest, where like you've got some upheaval there that needs to be tended to. And so if you run into these situations, I guess my biggest piece of advice after just trying to realize you're not alone, you're not broken or stupid because you're encountering this, is you likely need to give yourself a chance to rest. And maybe if your life won't allow you to rest from everything, maybe just rest from the things that you can. Rest from the social engagements that are non-obligatory. Rest from your art and your creativity for a little bit of time. If you have the ability to take some naps and actually physically recover, that's going to be really beneficial for you too. There's nothing wrong with you because you get burnt out, because you get to your wit's end. Maybe there is something that you can do some work on, in counseling or therapy and figure out if there are additional causes. there's certainly some potential for neurodivergent traits that are going to make those things happen at a higher frequency or have a higher propensity to happen. I haven't done much of that research on myself, though actually I am planning to in the next year or so. Once we kind of get moved into the next house, I would like to go and see about some things that I've been suspicious of for many years. I don't, need any kind of diagnosis for medication purposes or because my life is a train wreck. I am mostly just curious. And if you are similar to me, then that might be a good idea. And if you are in a situation where there are things that are difficult that don't seem to be difficult for other people, but they are for you, it's not a bad idea to do some research. It's not a bad idea to go see a doc or talk to a therapist or a counselor about these things. I talk about this sometimes. Obviously, I'm not a medical professional in any regard. I'm just a human who's 38 years old, who works with a lot of people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s at the gallery, who taught kids for a long time and had colleagues of all ages. I'm just a human who watches other humans and who observes things, and I try to be really introspective when I have struggles. And right now, I am struggling a little bit. I am tired and a little bit burnt out. And I think maybe for the first time in my life, I'm really able to realize what's going on because I have enough freedom in my life to actually take a break for a moment and think what's happening here? Why was I not as patient as I would like to be with my daughter as I was helping her get ready for school this morning? Those kind of things always serve as triggers for me to take a look at something else. They are like the spark where it's what's going on over here? So, but yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot more to ramble about here, but I want you, if you are struggling or have struggled with this kind of thing in the past, to understand you're not alone. You're not broken. You're not stupid. You shouldn't feel shameful or guilty about running into a brick wall because you've just been spending so much energy trying to do creative things and work through your art. It's hard. Art is difficult. I've kind of callously thrown out the phrase before that art is pain. I'm taking it from The Princess Bride, when Westley says that, life is pain, Highness. Anybody who says differently is selling something. It's a good phrase. It's a good quote, but I actually believe it. Most growth, if not all growth in life, requires some measure of pain. Sometimes it's just discomfort, and sometimes it's, your muscles aching. But good things in life generally come through growth, and growth pretty much always is accompanied by some measure of pain. And so there is a strange solace in just understanding that's the case, and in understanding that you're going to have to endure it, and then developing mechanisms to get through it. For me right now, the mechanism is I need to rest and I need to not feel guilty about taking that rest. And you'll notice perhaps that there's been no staggering of videos on the channel. You're not going to see a break because I'm resting. That's just because I work ahead on things. And so if you ever look at me and you're well, he seems like he can keep all his stuff together. It's no, I just work far enough ahead so I can accommodate for my off days and my strangeness here and there. So, but yeah, that's all I've got for you. I hope that this was beneficial. I hope that just me being open about what's going on is beneficial to you. I am fine. I don't need anybody checking on me or anything. I'm good. I've talked to my wife about it. It's oh yeah, we had the art show and all this stuff last week, and I just kind of ran through it all, did it all, and then at a certain point I was oh, and I'm out of social energy. I'm out of creative energy. Uh-oh, let's take a couple days and chill out. So, but I am good. I will be fine. I'm on the road to getting back to normal, and it's probably going to be a couple more days. Because we've got the Easter holiday this weekend, and I'm sure that'll take a ton of social energy out of me. But I'll get back to normal, next week sometime, I suppose, or not. It's hard to predict these things. But anyway, this has hopefully been beneficial to you, and thank you so much for listening. Thank you to my patrons who are on the screen right now. And if you want to check out the Patreon or Discord, they are both linked below. As always, have a lovely day. If you are struggling, I hope it gets better soon. If you're not, I hope it stays that way. Have a good one, y'all. See you soon.